everything good? I hope it's not gone.
Didn't raise my prep fee, though. That was all I was guaranteed. So I had to do this on my own.
How are you?
Yeah, right here. Big umbrella. Yeah, this whole as a kid, I came on vacation while I was school here every year. The Hunters and the guy that used to play guitar, he used to give out flavors every question they got correct. Remember that? I was ready to block the street off, do stuff outside. I got when I was a kid, just first went to like had to be. That's good. These guys are I gotta ask you His family out in Facebook. Or his mom and dad believes that pizzeria back then. She used to make those pizzas. That's a good name. That's a really great idea. Yeah. Instead of having wine, it's actually
I know, right? That's great.
That's it. I'm gonna wine that. You know that. When I give your house. There you go. I'll drink wine. Cabernet like this.
Saving these seats from anybody? For you? People, we gotta stick together.
Is this real wine or is it grape juice? It is grape juice. Now this is great though. It's a great idea. There's no cross contamination.
This is a good thing to do. Sit down. Reverend Gamer. Tucker. Yes, pleasure to meet you.
This is my chance. I used to be a prayer leader. I didn't know where this place was.
Sometimes we all just we need some place to put all of our stuff. It seems like we don't have enough room.
Today I was like a bus by the hour. Pleasure to meet you.
The older ones I don't know. I used to be in the different musicals. Worship. And she used to be
We can all take our seats, please.
yeah, John.
While everyone's taking their seat, we just want to welcome you. Good evening, everyone. Good evening to those that are online. Forgive us for starting a little late. We wanted to make sure that everyone was here before we started, but we want to welcome everyone to the Emergent Threats House of Worship Under Siege Community Forum, hosted by the Kenilworth Police Department and sponsored by the Kenilworth Interfaith Fellowship. And we would like to especially welcome Kenilworth Mayor Linda Karlovich and members of her staff. I'm not sure if they're here, but we welcome her daughter. Okay, yes. And of course, Chief of Police Fred Seuss Jr. We welcome him. And members of his police force, though I don't see them, they've come in and out. Okay, so we want to welcome them as well. And as well as the reverends, pastors, and clergy of the Kenilworth Interfaith Fellowship. There's a number of them with us. And then we would like to welcome you, the Kenilworth community, those that are online and those that are here in the building, to this very important and relevant event tonight. So first, some housekeeping. If you haven't found the guest Wi-Fi, the password is John3:16. If you do need that, and we ask that you put your phones on vibrate. There is a bathroom in the back, and then there are men and women's room downstairs if you need them. Following the presentation, there will be a question and answer, a Q&A time, for which you're welcome to pose your question at the freestanding mic in the center of the aisle. And for those viewing on YouTube Live, you can pose your question in the chat, and John will relay them to Chief Seuss. He has some cards he'll fill out there in the back. So following the forum tonight, there will be a light refreshment in the fellowship room, and you're welcome to stay for that. If you've come and you've brought a coat and you've left it in the coat room, please make sure you exit with the coat. Don't leave it here. We will not be able to find you. You'll have to come back. So since our venue is a church building, I will take the liberty this evening to open up in a word of prayer. So let's pray. Our Father in heaven, we come to you in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ our Lord. We want to thank you for Jesus, his death on the cross, availing all to have forgiveness of sin. Thank you that you are risen from the dead, ascended to heaven, and seated at God's right hand, and you are the great high priest and the soon coming King. Thank you that we can have hope in you in this life and in the life to come. And I pray this evening that all here would understand and to know you in a personal way and have salvation and assurance that can only be offered by you, Jesus Christ, if we repent and believe. Thank you, Lord, for family, for community, and for the borough of Kenilworth. We pray for safety in our borough, safety for our elderly and our children. We ask that you remove those things that would become a source of harm or contribute to lawlessness in our community. We ask for the removal of illicit drugs and drug dealers and illegal guns, and we pray for our leaders that you would give them wisdom and prudence, and especially Chief Seuss and our police force, that they will sustain them in their endeavors to uphold the law and to keep Kenilworth safe. Knowing, though, Lord, we do recognize that all our help and safety comes from you and you alone, so we want to bless your name tonight as we are together. Give us a good, attentive heart and mind. We thank you for Jesus, in whose name we pray. Amen. Yes. Chief?
Welcome, everybody. Very happy to be here. To Pastor Swain, thank you very much for your hospitality, for opening up the Kenilworth Gospel Chapel. First and foremost, I've always come at it through a position of faith, so I want to thank God for being here. And I want to thank my friends in the audience. I've always told by my mother, with God, nothing is impossible. Without God, nothing is possible. So I'm thankful for that, and I'm thankful to be here with all of you. My friends from the Interfaith Council, Mayor Karlovich has been a good friend to me the entire time I've been here. Police Commissioner John Zimmerman is here. We worked together for a long time. We are blessed in this community that we have governing body that supports the police, does everything they can for our community, and this is just a small part of that. Before we get started, I'd like to bring up Mayor Karlovich to say a few words.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you for, it's really an honor to be here this evening, and thank you for including me. I wish to thank Chief Seuss for creating this event, and for all the interfaith spiritual leaders in our community for participating this evening. Having representation from all houses of worship is truly an inspiration. It's nice to be surrounded by friends, by those whose faith allows them to dream of a brighter future for our community and for our world. Faith is a common thread among people of all backgrounds. Knowing our diversity is our strength, and out of many, we are one. As leaders, we must work for the least among us, give voices to the voiceless, and stand for those who cannot stand for themselves. I believe that as much as we try to affect change in our community, we are even more shaped by it, molded by the circumstances of our environment. We have to not only address gun violence, but also address the underlying problems of poverty, mental illness, and desperation. Our weak gun laws make hateful rhetoric even more dangerous. Fatal shootings in the safety of our sanctuaries is heinous. These cowardly acts have no place in our society. Our police continue to address gun violence, but it cannot be done without the moral support and action from people like all of us. I cannot adequately express the sadness and anger I feel when another despicable act rips through our country. Sending love and prayers to innocent victims, for people praying on a Saturday or Sunday morning, and for the brave men and women sworn to respond and protect us seems hollow and not nearly enough. So together we must confront hate. Whenever and whenever we see it, we must own that today's speech of divisiveness tills the ground for hate to grow. When we demonize one another, when the intent is to make us afraid of each other, we must resolve to do better. May the memories of those that died in violent acts make us stronger than hate. Tragedy calls us to step forward together, to declare that no one can make us afraid or tear us apart. When people of faith put faith into action, there is no limit to the good work that we can do together. I believe that God is with us in the adversities of life, just as God is with us in our joys and triumphs. Our community is built through our shared experiences and our love for each other. Let us continue to build peace together. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mayor. Very eloquent, very well said. As the mayor said, you know, there's a lot of things that we can talk about, underlying problems that we're working on to address. And I'm grateful and thankful for the Interfaith Council. We're trying to address some of these things together through law enforcement, through the Interfaith Council, through some of the things that we have planned. Unfortunately, I never thought I'd be standing up here before you as the Chief of Police talking about violence in houses of worship. The fact that we even have to talk about this subject is upsetting to me, the new normal, as the case may be. And I want to start out with this and let you know this. I teach CCD on Monday nights at St. John Vianney's down by my house. And about a month ago, we had a lockdown drill. And it was the first time I'd been involved in a lockdown drill from that side of it, in that we locked they called the lockdown drill, we locked the doors, pulled the shades down, all the kids came up to the front, were quiet. Police Commissioner Zimmerman can tell you we've probably done this hundreds of times in my career, where in Harding School and David Burley, where we call a lockdown drill, and then we walk through the hallways, check the doors, make sure that everything's down. But this was the first time I was involved with it from that side of it. And when they started simulating the gunshots by hitting a garbage can, I have to be honest with you, I was upset. I had my level of anxiety went through the roof. And then I looked at my kids. Now I have a bunch of third graders, a bunch of 8 and 9-year-old kids who normally I can't keep quiet for more than about 7 seconds at a pop, right? So they're sitting up in front of the classroom and I'm watching them and they're quiet as church mouse. They're giving each other hand signals with their eyes and all, they're calming each other down and until the drill was over. And I was upset. I was legitimately upset. And I went home and I told my wife, I said, I'm not sure what upset me more is being involved on that end and through the drill, or the fact that to the kids it was normal to them. I think that upset me more, is that to them, it's their normal. They won't ever know a life of not having drills. You know, the mayor, Police Commissioner Zimmerman and I are about the same age, and I remember growing up when we used to have air raid drills, where we'd get under our desk, but we never kind of took it like that seriously. These kids will never know a world where there isn't, okay? So the reason we're here today is I've been to numerous seminars now on shootings in houses of worship. From the year 1966 to 2000, there was only 1% of mass shootings were motivated by religious hate, okay? That number jumped up to 9% from the year 2000 to the year 2018. And in the last 4 years, 17% of mass shootings in this country have involved some form of religious hate, okay? I don't have to tell you that it's a problem, okay? Religions of every faith and denomination have been targeted. We've had mass shootings at Afro-American Church in Charleston, South Carolina, synagogues in Pittsburgh, San Diego, just recently in Texas, a Baptist church shooting in Sutherland Park, Texas, and a Sikh temple in Wisconsin, okay? In addition to arson attacks and bombings of mosques and churches from Minnesota to Utah to Louisiana. This is a problem all across the country. You don't have to look too far to see the tremendous divisions, either online or in the media. As the mayor mentioned, rhetoric, hate, propaganda dominate social media sites. With the pandemic now stretching into its 3rd year, it seems to me people have just forgotten how to be civil with each other, okay? We look on the news every night and we see another fight on an airplane because somebody won't wear a mask. Fist fights at grocery stores or retail stores, somebody being attacked in the street because of their ethnicity, their race, their religion. It's everywhere, okay? And there's a lot of things, like the mayor said, that we can do to address that aspect of it, to get to the root cause of why this is going on. But the fact of the matter is, it's here. And we have to address it. We can't take the ostrich approach or the put our head down and say, well, it can't happen here. It can happen anywhere. One of the things that struck me as I was going through some of the debriefings from some of the shootings is every single mass shooting at a church or a mosque or a synagogue, they all said the same thing. We never thought it could happen here. Not here, not us. We didn't think it could happen to us. It can happen anywhere. So where I'm going to start with is this. One of the things that's so great about our houses of worship, and the thing that I love about it, is probably also one of the things that makes us the most vulnerable, okay? I have a lake house up in Bear Creek, Pennsylvania. It's about 2 hours away from here, not coincidentally about 5 miles away from where Pastor Nova has a house up in Thornhurst. We take Route 80 out to 115, and as we pass a Methodist church right before our turnoff. And that's always our signal. We're almost to the lake house, and I see this church, and they have a sign out front right by the road, and it says, "All are welcome." And I love seeing that sign because to me it brings me so much peace and joy that they're willing to welcome anybody who drives by. But then that little voice, that little cop voice in the back of my head goes off, and I said, well, if all are welcome, it's not just the people who are looking for some comfort or some hope or some love. If all are welcome, then the doors are also open for any crackpot who has some kind of perceived slight or grudge, okay? The problem is we welcome everybody, but we don't make anybody register for Mass. We don't make them go through a background check, okay? They don't have to provide references. We open the doors and we say, come in, you're welcome, okay? So we have to balance. The problem that we walk is we have to balance providing security for our parishioners, for our congregants, but at the same time maintaining the integrity of our house of worship and providing a safe place for people to come and worship and feel safe. Okay? So I basically, we could sit here from either now to midnight. I could do a course tomorrow for about 8 hours on it. I boiled it down to a couple factors. Basically a three-prong approach that we can talk about tonight. And again, I'm open to any ideas. Myself and my department, the full resources of my department are available to any house of worship who wants a security assessment or anything like that. You guys have always been good to me. When John was the chief, you guys were good to us. We're here for our community. The schools, the churches, there's nothing more important than that and your guys' safety to me. So it's a three-prong approach, okay? 2 are proactive, and one is reactive. My goal here is not to reinvent the wheel, but just to start a discussion as to what we can do better to protect our community, to provide a safe and positive environment for religious worship, and a welcoming environment. Remember this, a welcoming environment does not mean a defenseless one. Okay? Remember that. A welcoming environment does not have to be a defenseless one. So the first key to me is this, intelligence. And what I mean by that is establishing a good two-way flow of communication between our faith community and the police department. I think we're way ahead in this issue because, like I said, we have our interfaith council that we meet on a somewhat regular basis to exchange information. I digress here. I do want to go back a touch. Our Union County prosecutor was supposed to be here tonight. He let me know he was not able to get here at the last minute. Prosecutor Daniel is a tremendous guy. I think an awful lot of him. This kind of stuff is what he is very big on. He's big on community relations, being involved in the community. And he would be very happy to be here. And obviously, our mayor, our council, this is something that's very important to them too. So we have a leg up in this, in that our community, our police department, our interfaith council are already speaking to each other. We're speaking to each other before things happen, okay? On the law enforcement side, one of the things I like about Prosecutor Daniel is he's made it a point to focus on intelligence-driven policing. Very simply, what this means is that we have a high-tech task force, we have an intelligence division that are always monitoring people for threats. They have known threats, they have known sites. They're always monitoring things for threats and getting it out to us as to what we should be aware of. And a good example of this is last year, I believe it was June of last year, we received a report of and I could be saying the wrong thing, I don't have all the technology down, but I believe it was a TikTok threat of a bombing at a school. And what happened was it was a threat that had been originally started in Ohio, was reposted, retweeted, whatever it was, somewhere in New Jersey. And the understanding was that somebody was trying to get out of a Friday final exam. I called our prosecutor's office, we spoke about it. They deemed it to be highly incredible due to the fact that it originated in Ohio, somebody had posted here. I then called our superintendent, Kyle Arlington. We discussed everything from doing nothing to closing the school down and everything in between. In the end, what we settled for was having stepped up patrols at drop-off in the morning and pick up in the afternoon, and having our guys do some walkthroughs of schools and having our school resource officer be visible during the day looking for threats. It kind of was a no-win situation in that if we did nothing and something happened, we were going to get second-guessed. If we canceled school, parents are going to be upset their kids missed school. So you have to do the best you can with the information that we have, and with the information we had, that's what we ended up doing. So we have great partnerships with the ROC in Trenton and with the Department of Homeland Security. The ROC is the Regional Operation Intelligence Center. They spend all day, every day, monitoring threats, monitoring people who are known threats, monitoring websites where extremists post information, looking for threats, whether it's to our community, to our schools, or to our houses of worship, okay? When we receive information of a general nature, generic nature, to a specific religion, a specific denomination, we're going to pass that on to you guys, okay? If we have specific threats, that's a different story. As I said, the full weight and resources of our department is going to be available to any of you guys. And not only that, but if Prosecutor Daniel were here, he would tell you the same thing. The full weight and resources of the prosecutor's office, the county sheriffs, and the county PD would be here to protect our houses of worship. Again, to me, there's nothing more important than that. As the mayor said, to attack people who are gathered in faith to pray for love, it's absolutely unacceptable, and we'll never tolerate that, okay? So making sure that our faith-based organizations have routine access to information and assessments about extremist movements and threats, to me, is absolutely critical and can't be understated, okay? Even more important is the timely notification of specific and credible threats, okay? To that end, I believe that possible monthly meetings, maybe between our interfaith council and law enforcement, whether they're in person, online, we've done Zoom meetings. I think this is critical, but also on your guys' end, we need feedback from you guys. You know your parishioners, you know your congregants more better than we do. And we can't address a problem if we don't know there's a problem. So the feedback from you guys is essential to us, okay? Let us know what your problems are, what you're seeing, what you're hearing. And if we can't address it, if we don't know the answer, you know I'll get it to you, okay? But I think it's important. This flow of information that we have is critical. So the second step, the second problem is evaluating the preparedness and your proactive efforts of our faith-based organizations. This is a fancy way of saying being aware of our surroundings. In police work, we call it situational awareness. I'm going to ask the mayor to help me out here for a second. So Mayor, we were two of the first people here tonight, correct? We came in through the back doors where the donuts are set up over there, came up here, walked up through the front aisle, and sat down, correct? Somebody comes in through the back door right now with an AR-15 and starts shooting. How are you getting out of here? Where does that door go? You asking me? Telling me? All right. I appreciate the mayor being a good sport and playing along. And I do this almost every single weekend with my wife when we walk into a restaurant. I was telling Pastor Swaim about a couple years ago before the pandemic, we were at the Stone Pony in Asbury Park, and cops are wired differently. As soon as I walk into a place, I need to know every single way to get out. I know when you go down these steps, these two doors can meet behind the altar up here. We go down the steps, there's a door that leads out to Passaic Avenue. From there, there's another set of steps down to the basement, runs the length of the way here, where there's an exit that goes out onto 23rd Street, steps that come up and you can get out that way. I need to know every way to get out of the place as soon as I get in. That's how we are, that's how cops are wired. I think Councilman Zimmerman will tell you the same thing. I don't like to know where I'm not going. We went to the Stone. That's it. I said to my wife, we went into the Stone Pony. I said, San, how are you getting out of here? She goes, I'm following you. I said, well, since I'm probably going to be the guy running at the guy who's got a gun, probably not your best idea, okay? So that's how we think. Cops think this way. Years ago when my daughter was little, she was 5 or 6 years old. We lived 2 blocks from her school in Colonia. And we would walk, I'd walk home to pick her up, we'd hold hands, we'd walk home, she'd tell me about her day. And as we were walking, I'd say to her, Sarah, what color was that car that just passed? Tell me something about the person who was driving. What are some of the characters of the license plate? The person coming towards you, what color shoes they have on? What were they dressed in? What did they look like? And it got to be a game, okay, that she would know this. And what I was trying to teach her was situational awareness, to be aware of what was going on around her. Even to this day, this last week, she went to see a concert in the city with my wife. And I said, baby, have fun, I love you. And remember, she goes, I know, watch everybody's hands. I get it, I know, watch their hands. It's the last thing I say to her before we leave the house all the time. But that's us, that's how we are. Cops know our surroundings. We see things other people don't see. So when we talked about all are welcome, every Sunday or Saturday or whenever your services are, we welcome people into our church. Are we just letting people come in? Are we engaging people at all? One thing that I saw again that I thought was terrific, my wife and I just went down to North Carolina. Friends of ours bought a house in Lake Norman. We went to a Sunday service at Rocky Mount Methodist Church, beautiful church, big stone church. We walked into the vestibule and there was a greeting area, a big table out there. And on either side they had coffee rooms set up where they were having coffee and tea and hot chocolate, and it was a wonderful little setup. And as soon as we walked in, somebody came up wearing a Rocky Mount shirt, and they greeted us, shook hands. How are you? Good morning. Thank you for coming to our church. Are you new here? And apparently they could tell by the accent we supposedly had that we weren't from the area. But I said it was wonderful. They talked to us for a little bit. They gave us a little a welcome box with a coffee mug and some wristbands and this and that. And I felt so at home. I felt peaceful. I felt welcome. And then that little cop voice went off in the back of my head again. And I'm like, what a great idea. What a great idea. We're welcoming people, right? And on the same hand, we're welcoming people to our church and we're saying, thank you for coming. We're glad you're here. But at the same time, we're taking their temperature, right? We're learning their names. We're knowing who they are. Why are they here? You're on vacation. And we're being friendly. But we're looking for behavioral signs that something might be wrong. And I think we all kind of know what they are, right? Somebody's talking to you and they're staring past you with that 1,000,000-mile stare, that 1,000-mile stare. Or maybe they're staring at you you know, giving you the evil eye. Or maybe they're standing talking to you and they're like this, or as they're talking to you, they're clenching their fist. There's all sorts of behavioral cues that we know in law enforcement that we look for that could signal that something's wrong. Okay? So I thought about that as we did. The little cop voice went off and said, man, what a great idea to have greeters. And I don't know whether you guys do it in our houses of worship or not. And it's not just our greeters. It's something that I think we want all of our congregants to be aware of, right? They'll see something, say something. Okay? How many terrorist acts or how many incidents have been avoided because somebody saw something and said something to somebody? Hundreds through the years since 9/11 or what have you. Okay? So these little indicators that we know of, these are things that we look for. Okay? Now the other thing that I came across when we were doing this was our faith-based organizations, do they have the resources and the training to ensure that protective measures are put in place, and not just put in place, but exercised on a regular basis? This is the kind of stuff that's important. Like I said, whether we have greeters, whether we're talking to new people who are coming, an evaluation of the mass shootings that have taken place through the years revealed that some of the larger houses of worship that have experienced either prior attacks or threats, they can afford to reinforce the facilities by things such as installing features such as bulletproof glass, lockdown capabilities, doors that lock and can only be opened with a push bar, say, from inside, hiring security teams, or forming and training security teams or security guards. What they also found was that some of the smaller parishes or smaller churches, or maybe some of the rural or poor areas, these weren't available to them, okay? So again, this is the balance we have to work between security and making our services open and welcome and friendly. Do we want our parishioners passing through metal detectors? Do we want to have security cameras? Do we want to have lockdown capabilities and security teams at the front of each door? That's as individual for each church, depending on how you address your threats of your individual church. But it ranges the options from just having greeters to all the way up to bulletproof glass and going through metal detectors. Does that make for an engaging and welcoming Sunday service? I'm not sure. But these are some of the options that are there. One thing I do want to mention is there's grants out there through FEMA, through the Department of Homeland Security. Specifically, FEMA offers a grant called the Nonprofit Security Grant Program. And it's at www.fema.gov/grants, where they provide grants to our nonprofit churches and houses of worship, depending on your need. So that's an option for anybody who who's interested in that. Now, when we talk about our balancing act, some of the scary facts that I came up with was simply this. We might say, well, we don't want to upset anybody. We want people to come to church, want them to come to service, and we don't want to turn people off and don't turn people away. And I get that. I understand that. But again, looking into some of the facts from some of the mass shootings through the years, what I found was this. In 22% of the mass shootings involving houses of worship, the perpetrator had some prior association with that house of worship. Okay, so in 1 in 5 cases, the shooter had been there before, was either associated with the house of worship, had been to mass, had some form of association, so he'd been there before. In 57% of the cases, the perpetrator had conducted some form of planning behavior prior to the attack. Think about that. In 57% of the cases, almost 60% of the time, the perpetrator was in the house of worship to scope out the layout, to see what kind of security cameras you had, to see what kind of security detail and measures were there, okay? So if a perpetrator in 60% of the case was willing to come to the church to see where all the access and exits and all were, shouldn't our parishioners know the same thing? Shouldn't we be on the same level playing field? So the one thing that I want to develop from this end is simply this. A contingency plan and an emergency plan of action is absolutely essential, okay? I'm not saying that you have to have active shooter drills, but I think that all of our congregants should know where all the emergency exits are. They should know where the steps go. They should know whether there's a choir loft, whether there's a basement, where there's rooms that have heavy doors, that doors that lock that people can't get into, as opposed to just the Home Depot doors that you could kick down, you know, a 6-year-old could kick down. These are things that we should know, okay? And what are you gonna do if something happens, okay? That's probably, along with the flow of information, the most critical thing that we can do is have a plan, have a contingency plan. Even a bad one is better than not having one, okay? So that's something that I make my officers available to you, to any of our houses of worship. If you want my officers to come in and conduct a security assessment, we'll see what your strengths are, we'll see where your weaknesses lie, we'll see what your layouts of your houses of worship are, and we'll come up with a generic, a basic plan for you guys. Maybe you can put out an email blast to your congregants to let them know if something happens, this is what we expect from you. This is, you know, for your own safety, where you would go and what you would do, okay? Which leads me to my last prong, the third prong. We can have all the intelligence that we want, we can pre-plan all we want, we can have contingency plans and emergency plans of action, but you know what, unfortunately, sometimes things happen. We have to be right 100% of the time. The bad guy, the extremist, only has to be right once. We have to be right all the time. So what do you do if something happens? And I hate that we even have to sit up here and talk about it, but if somebody comes through the back door right now, what do you do? So years ago, I had a partner when I had a couple of years on the job, and we used to drive around at night, and Kenilworth was always kind of busy up until about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. We had a lot of bars at the time. And then from 3 to 7 o'clock, it was kind of dead. We'd drive around, and there wasn't a whole lot going on. And I had a partner who would always play what if. He'd say to me, what would you do if a guy right now is running down the street with an AK-47? What would we do? What would you do with this? And he'd say, what would you do if somebody took me hostage? I said, you know what? I said, I'd probably shoot you to shut you up, man. It's 4 in the morning, shut up already, you know? But what I realized was he was doing to me what I was doing to my daughter. We were mentally training, we were mentally preparing for what we would do if something happens. And it's something I do now every time I go in a place. I go in a diner, as Councilman Zimmerman said, I always sit with my back to the, you know, with my face to the door. Never sit with the back to the door. And the first thing I think of before I order my coffee is, how am I getting out of here? If somebody comes in through that door, what am I doing? Where am I going? It's a little mental gymnastics that I do every time I go in some place, especially a place that's unfamiliar to me. So what do you do? What if? Play what if. It'll never hurt you because mentally you'll be ready, you'll be prepared. Okay? The universal accepted thing to do in the case of an active shooter is very simple. Run, hide, fight. It's what they came up with after Columbine, and for argument's sake, it's simple, it's easy to remember, and it's what we do. Run, hide, fight. The first step is run. Obviously, this goes back to what I talked about with the mayor, about knowing the layout of your house of worship. We're gonna run, right? But where? Where? Okay? The mayor said, I'm gonna run through that door. No, wait, I'm gonna run through that door. You would have got to the same place. She would have realized that eventually. You would have got to the same place, right? But we're gonna run, right? But you want to know where we're running, which is why it's very important for our congregants to know the layout of our house of worship and where to go and what to do. Okay. The one other thing I want to touch on too is if there is ever an active shooter, okay, and you run and you get outside, as law enforcement and we're showing up, we need to see your hands. We don't know who the good guy is. We don't know who the bad guy is. We have hundreds of people running out of a church and one of them might be a bad guy. We have no idea. We need to see your hands. When you come out and you see law enforcement, put your hands up, show us you got nothing, show us your hands are empty, okay? So we can quickly assess whether you were a threat or not. If somebody's not showing us their hands, in the case of an active shooter, we are going to deem you a threat. Okay, or if somebody's not listening to our commands, and I understand it's a panic situation, it's stressful, but it's stressful for us too. We need to see your hands. Okay, so we're gonna run, we're gonna try to get as far away from the shooter as possible, and we're gonna show our hands when we see law enforcement. The second step of that is hide. If it's impossible to run, we can't get to an exit, we can't run, we need to hide, okay? Your constituents, your congregants need to know the difference between cover and concealment. Cover is something that can block or obstruct an attack, while concealment is something that makes a target difficult for an attacker to see. And I'll give you an example, and everybody's probably seen videos online of shootouts of cops. And they'll say, why is he hiding behind the wheel of a car? Well, he's not hiding behind the wheel of a car, he's hiding behind the engine block, okay? An engine block is cover, okay? Handgun rounds, most rifle rounds, they're not going through the engine block of a car, so that's what us cops use as cover, okay? A mailbox is concealment. Now, it might hide you, but most handguns, all rifles are going to go through that mailbox and you can still get hurt and still get killed, okay? So cover and concealment is something that we talk about in police work all the time. Know the difference between something that can stop an attack and something that can just hide you, okay? And the last step is obviously self-explanatory, fight. If you can't run and you can't hide, well then you're going to have to fight. And to be as blunt as possible, if somebody is in here with a gun and they're trying to shoot you, all bets are off. Everything's fair. There's nothing that's out of bounds or unfair when you're fighting for your life and protecting somebody that you love. You can do whatever you want to their private parts, you can gouge their eyes, you can do whatever you have to do to survive. And I think that's best exemplified by Flight 93 on 9/11. They realized that they were under attack and they decided there's nowhere to run, there's nowhere to hide, we need to fight back, and what you saw was ordinary people doing something absolutely extraordinary. And it's happened in many different cases through the years. Anyone can be a hero in any situation. All it takes is a little faith. So, as uncomfortable as this may be, I think this is a discussion that we need to have with our constituents, with our congregants, and just a lot of the things that I brought up today aren't specific to houses of worship. We can use them in any circumstance, okay? You can be out to dinner and something can happen. As we've seen on TV and in the media, this stuff pops up everywhere, okay? I'm all for de-escalation and talking to people. We all know that there's some people we can't talk to, you know? There's threats all around us every day. Being prepared and having a plan in place is always better than doing nothing and hoping it won't happen to us. As I said, when we analyzed these mass shootings, almost everyone said, without fail, we didn't think it would happen here. We didn't think it could happen to us. It can happen anywhere. It can happen anywhere. So in conclusion, I would hope that everybody can take a little something out of this tonight, okay? Free flow of information back and forth from law enforcement. And what I say to the houses of worship, too, to everybody else in here, if you come up to headquarters, figuratively and literally, my door is always open. I'm the first office in there, and my door is open. If you have a question about something, come in and ask me a question. My door is open, you can come in anytime. Now this has presented some problems, I'll be honest with you, because about a month ago, I had a lady walk into my office, and she said to me, "Are you the chief?" And I said, "Yeah." She said, "I want to talk to you about a double murder one of your guys committed." So my ears perked up, and I said, "Okay." And she said, I just want you to know I hate the police." My ears perked up even more now. So now I'm sitting there, and I move my hand to my gun, and she is looking up in the corner of the room with that 1,000-mile stare, and she has her hands in her purse like this. I have an emergency button on the side of my desk, which I haven't hit. That time I hit it, I had 2 guys in my office in about 20 seconds. We ended up taking her down the hall, and she was having a psychotic break. She was having mental issues. She didn't have a weapon on her, but she was hearing voices and seeing people. And you never know when this can happen. I certainly wasn't ready for that. I was busy working on something else. And we like to say in police work is hours and hours of boredom interrupted by moments of sheer terror. That's police work in a nutshell, okay? But you have to think and be ready for this. This could happen at any time. So again, like I said, to not just our houses of worship, anybody who has a question, who wants to deal with something, please come find me. As I said, like with the mayor, I think I'm a big believer that our faith-based organization should be a partner with us, with law enforcement, in addressing some of these problems that we have. I would love to tell you that we can address these problems and we'll never have these mass shootings. I think it's maybe a little bit naive, but I think we can deal with some things, and we have some things in the work. We have a Faith in Blue rally planned for October, where we can try to bring our community and our faith community and our law enforcement community together and address some of these problems that are going on in the country. And we want to be leaders, we want to be progressive in this, and we want to be out front with this. And we have a saying in law enforcement that I think is appropriate. In law enforcement, we always plan for the worst and we hope for the best. but we're ready for any contingency. We always say if we can plan for the worst and we can handle the worst, then anything better than the worst, we're good with. And I'm fine with putting my faith in God and believing in Him and hoping on Him, but you know what? If it doesn't work, I'm prepared for the other side too. So if there's any questions, open up the microphone for any questions. John, if we have any questions online, I'd be more than happy to address any questions online.
Yes.
Reverend?
First of all, thank you for your kind words. But we were just always talking a little bit on respect. So
Well, I thank you.
what I have is, you mentioned, which I thought was good, which you all did with the school system on practice.
Lockdowns, yeah.
I believe that may be something good for us as churches, people of faith to practice a lockdown. What would that look like? Because every church size is different.
Yeah.
And it'd be helpful for us to know what to do in a smaller building versus what to do, or a new matter, of also what to do in a large building.
Oh, I agree with you, and thank you, and it's my pleasure. I thank you for the kind words. I would say I have a hard time answering that without seeing what we're talking about, because every building is different. And it's funny, when I came in today, I said to Pastor Swain, do you mind if I look around a little bit? I said it'll make more sense when I speak, you'll understand why. Again, I wanted to know exactly what I was looking at. This is an enormous building here. There's a lot of, like I said, there's a room that runs the whole length downstairs, and there's all sorts of rooms off to the side. So when you're talking about doing a lockdown here, his lockdown would look maybe much different than yours and much different than yours. But it's certainly something that I'm willing to sit down with any of you and talk about and see what it would look like, and possibly do a security assessment for you, and even run a lockdown drill, an active shooter drill without, having somebody come through it. Because like I said before, being prepared, I said, is certainly a better option than doing nothing. So let me know. If that's something that you're interested in, I'll be more than happy to set that up with you.
Come back into the mic. So
Oh, you're loud enough. You don't need a microphone.
First of all, we want to appreciate what you're doing for us in the community, Police Chief, and also our mayor for allowing all of this to take place. You brought out some very important aspects for us that are houses of worship that we need to be aware of. Some of the things that you mentioned, I was already aware of those things. One of the congregations that I pastored, we had one of the things that you brought out, a layout plan, and we had it in the foyers all around the building, so that people, wherever you were in the building, you saw a visualization of exits, pathways, so you would have some sort of idea of your surroundings in a particular area of the building, just in case an emergency would arise.
Well, I'll tell you, I love that, Reverend.
And
That's a tremendous idea.
I'm bringing that to First Baptist. They don't have it there, but that was one of the elements. And what you had said, we wanted you to do that for us, to come in and do those things that will help us to be more ready and prepared for situations like this. We put in a security system, and we put it in for the safety and the well-being that our security team can assess and be looking at cameras, knowing what activities are going on all around the building. And we did it not only for safety of the people on the inside, but we did it for the safety of the community, because we put them on the outside of the perimeter as well, so that if anything goes on in the community, we have something that the officers can go take a look at, get an idea of whatever's going on. I think this is a plus for all of us if we just adapt these principles and utilize them. The lockdown, first time hearing this, and we're going to do that with your help, your team help, of how to make sure that we can do it and be adequately doing it in the interest that some emergency may arise, and we need to make sure that everybody is safe. Thank you.
Excellent. And thank you again for the kind words. And myself and my officers are at your disposal for whatever you guys may need.
One more thing. I talked to you about this, that I think that we need your help, because when we're doing what we're doing in the pandemic and we on Zoom platforms and we introduce it to others to join us, sometimes we get people that will come on. And out of the courtesy of the people of faith, our desire is to minister to those that are in need. But sometimes you can get some people that come on, it's not authentic, and sometimes the parishioners in your congregation, out of the sincerity of their heart, they want to get involved, and sometimes they open up their information to these people. We had an incident that occurred last week, and I kind of handled it by stating and letting the congregation know that we will take care of that. We're going to research, get some more information from the individual, and we request that nobody send anything out, so that way we're protecting them. I have a retired police officer in our congregation, and I spoke directly to him because I wanted to know his expertise on it, and that's why I spoke to you, because what happened with us could possibly happen with other churches of faith in the community, and you can open your personal information up, you can open your friends up, and they'll utilize you as an interest, and people will think that that's somebody that you really know, and possibly lose a lot of money, finances.
What I said before is that these scammers only have to be right once. You know, we have to avoid that all the time. But Reverend Gaynor, you make an excellent point there, in that they're preying on the very thing that makes our houses of worship so great, is that they know all our people are going to want to help anybody who's in need. But I like the idea, like you said, of everything going through the church, or you say, listen, we'll look into this. If you have any donations, get them to me, and we'll make a donation together as one unit, as opposed to everybody being exposed for that. So there's some excellent ideas there. And like I said, myself and my guys are at your full disposal. So I have one more question here, and it says, Chief Seuss, why are you so darn handsome? Pastor Nova, that was not the appropriate place for a Pastor Nova, but thank you. And I was born this way, Pastor Nova. Nothing I can do about it. Of course. Was that it? Was that it?
Since you read my since you read my comment, Reverend Gaynor is so tall, so I will put this down. I would like to thank Chief Seuss for a wonderful information. Thank you so much. And also I would like to thank Kenilworth Gospel Chapel. I love your house of worship. I envy you. That's holy jealousy. Yes, there's a holy jealousy that, I have that right now because your exit signs are all lit up. So maybe this is the reason why it's not our seminars not in the Methodist Church, because you will have a hard time getting out of the building if something happens. I'm just kidding.
You have a wonderful house of worship.
Yes, and I want to tell you, this is a very timely seminar because we are in the process of renovating, and we really need a counseling for safety, because when we renovate, we want it to be approved by the police department, so it's going to be safe for everybody and welcoming also. And also what Reverend Gaynor said, I want to tell everybody, because Mayor Linda was a victim of scam. She texted me, Pastor Nova, is this you? Somebody texted her that, Mayor Linda, I am in a prayer meeting, but I have a favor to ask. Please return to me via text. I cannot take your call. So please, if you receive anything like that and says from Pastor Nova or any pastors, please let us know, because you might think that it's us, but we will not ask any solicitation from things like email or text. We will come to you. We will find you. Even though if you run, you can run, you can hide, but we will find you. Yes, you cannot fight. And thank you so much. A wonderful evening. Thank you so much for the wonderful information. Blessings.
Thank you. And on my behalf, I just want to say to all members of the Interfaith Council, thank you. Your support here and your presence means the world to me. And Pastor Nova's been so good to me since I started as chief here. She was one of my first phone calls and put me in touch with all of you guys. And I appreciate everything. I'm sure Dr. Reverend Angela Battle is online here somewhere, and every crazy idea I come up with, her hand is up in the air too. And she's welcomed me into her church and my officers into her church. And I cannot tell you how blessed I am to have you guys as friends and support. And it means a lot to me, and it means a lot to the community. Pastor Swain, I thank you for opening up your house to us tonight. It's beautiful. Thank you so much. We've brought some coffee and donuts in the back. Everybody's welcome to stay and hang out and have some refreshments. I just want to leave you one thing which I've kept with me for the whole 27 years that I've been a police officer, and from the time I was a little kid. Something that's always resonated with me, and one of the reasons I became a police officer. And it's Matthew 5, verse 9. And it's from Jesus' beautiful Sermon on the Mount, where he said, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called children of God." And that's what I've believed all my life, and that's what I believe now. God bless you all. Thank you so much. Good night.
She'll be on her own.